there's a lot of setbacks right now, but the whole game is changing, which means there's also a ton of opportunity.
You also have to ask yourself the question is, you who is somebody that just stepped into the movie world, why does your opinion matter to a stranger clicking on your video?
Yes. On YouTube, you want to be the guy, you want to be the gal, you want to be the person. Like, you have to have that thing that you're associated with. Well, hello, creators. Today we are joined by 3C, fellow movie talker, and he crushed it in the year 2020. So his, I guess, was it early 2019 when you really started to gain momentum? Was it 2018?
Yeah, 2019 is when I went full time. So that's when it started for me. And then the bombshell of 2020 hit. And then we were all surprised.
Yeah, we're also like, I literally, whenever 2020 happened, March, I made a little short video where I wrote,
2019 was an amazing year for me. I quit my job in order to review movies on YouTube full time. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with movies in the year 2020.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
I've made a terrible mistake.
2020 plans, showed it up, tore it up, threw it over the air, and then wrote a little comment on it. Like, my caption was something like, better start applying for jobs at McDonald's. And some people took me seriously. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, dude, no, your content's so good, but please. Dude, it was a joke. It was a joke. Yeah. But the reality of last year was that the movie space lost all of its momentum because almost all the blockbusters were delayed. When they were put in theaters, it was not the best strategies because of the limitations. And so then we really didn't have a blockbuster season last year. So that really hurt a lot of movie YouTube channels. And it worked out for me. Like, I was financially, it worked out. Views was okay. But my sub growth, it really kind of took a hit compared to the previous 2 years. With your channel, you seem to crack the code on how to sustain growth. Like, you figured out the algorithm and what people wanted enough that you just crushed it last year.
Thanks,
with
man.
your sub growth. And that's the big reason I wanted to talk with you again. If you guys are unaware, I interviewed you, or I just was talking to the audience and you at the same time. That's not a weird way to do that. So if you guys don't know, I interviewed 3C, I don't know, about a year and 2 months ago, something like that. And I don't know if that was right before, right around, it was right around when you hit 100,000 subs. Right now you're like at 240, 250 and going strong.
Thanks.
And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So if you're kind of new to my interviews with 3C, we talked about kind of his story of how he gained that momentum. We'll touch on it a little bit here. We talked about it in the previous interviews. So wherever you're watching this, you can check out the clips up here or in the other section of where we're at. But I specifically want to talk about how did you respond when movies stopped coming out? What was kind of how did that hit you?
So in a way, I was very panicked, and then a part of me wasn't that scared because I had already changed my model for how I wanted to approach YouTube. Because when I started off back in 2016, when I first got my channel made, I wanted to do the basics that every movie YouTuber does, the trailer reactions, movie reviews. And then if I can here and there, I'll throw in the occasional news story. And I just, for years, was doing movie reviews and was lucky to maybe even get 50 people to watch. And who knows how many of those were me just checking back on my video, how many it's gotten. That might have been myself all 50 times.
Right. So for me, it was the case. It was like, of the 50, 30 were me, 15 were my mom, and 5 were other people.
Exactly. And so I just was noticing I'll never be to the level of like a Chris Stuckman or a Jeremy Johns, where their reviews, they can review a movie that came out in 1950, guaranteed 100K views. And that's not even me bagging on them. That's congrats. They've earned that. They've done it for so long. But we are just never going to be able to review Citizen Kane and get 100,000 views for that. So I had to really think, okay, what can I do? And at that point, I was like, I guess I'll just focus on the news and giving my opinion as honest as I can. And so in a way, I was like, okay, movies aren't coming out, and I'm not going to be able to review as many, which is fine because I already went away with that. But also, I'm like, what is going to happen to the movie news? Because if no movies are releasing, our studio's going to be having their meetings. Are they going to be, talking about, oh, this sequel's coming out or this reboot's in the works? And luckily enough, for most of 2020, we did get the occasional news piece at least once a week. So I was like, okay, that's going to keep me all right, at least for a video a week.
And I want to kind of pause right there with what you talked about. So many people, when they get into the movie space, the default, and it was mine, it was yours, was, hey, Chris Stuckman reviews movies, Jeremy Jahns reviews movies, I should review movies. But that's the problem. That's what everybody does. Every single person does that from that angle. Yeah. And therefore, there's just too much competition. Just simple supply and demand. The supply far exceeds the demand for movie reviews. So if you want to cut through in the movie space, you have to find a different angle. And this applies to whatever niche you might be in. You have to find some way to distinguish yourself. If you do what everyone else is doing, you're in competition with everyone else. If you do something no one else is doing, as long as it's interesting, then you stand out. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. And also, you also have to ask yourself the question is, you who is somebody that just stepped into the movie world, why does your opinion matter to a stranger clicking on your video? Yes. You know, Chris Stuckman, Jeremy Jahns, they've been doing it for so long. I remember watching them in my last days of middle school, early high school. So they're already ingrained in my brain of like, I trust these guys. They've been doing it for a long time. They must obviously already know, you know, how a movie should come out or how, if it's good or not. And someone who just stepped in, I'm like, I don't know your criteria. I don't know what you do. Why would your opinion really matter to me unless it's the only movie review out there, which sometimes I got lucky finding out how to do early screeners.
The people that are willing to put in the hustle, the people that are willing to go that extra mile, ask the questions, do the work, and look for that new angle, there's a new window of opportunity right now.
Oh, yeah.
And you just have to find it. Like, there's a lot of setbacks right now. But the whole game is changing, which means there's also a ton of opportunity.
Yeah. And you know, in this space of streaming, you could really find your niche because something that Austin Burke does awesome. And I always call him a crazy man for doing this is he reviews everything that comes out on streaming service, whether it's Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hulu. He manages to watch it in all in one sitting, whether it's like a 1 hour, 8 episode show. And he'll have it out there and he'll find sometimes it's these shows no one is talking about that get the most views, but that's because no one is talking about them. Exactly. There's no other option. And he's right there providing it for you. And so his channel's become very essential in my opinion, because if I haven't seen something on Netflix, I can bet sure where Austin probably already has a review on it.
And that's a great word. Find the space where you can be essential.
Yes.
And, you know, I've interviewed Austin. That's kind of what we talked about a lot of how did he find a way to kind of cut through this very crowded, busy space. He was the one that realized I got to be the guy that does the streaming. That is a space that the demand is exceeding the supply. So if I provide the supply, then I cut through, and that's what he did. So now he's the Netflix guy. Mm-hmm. So when everyone else was like, oh man, there's no major releases, I got to start doing streaming, they're competing against Austin. He's already number one as the Netflix streaming guy. And that's just always be looking for that spot to where you're essential, to where there's not enough people talking about this thing. Mm-hmm. And you can be the person that establishes yourself as the expert there.
Because that is the best way to grow. And that's kind of how I found my growth. If you're still watching this and don't know how, you know, I grew my channel, it was back in 2019. They were making a reboot of the Child's Play movies. And I actually have a poster of it right there. And I'm a big horror fan and I love the Chucky movies. And I saw as soon as that was announced, like with any reboot or remake, there was automatic hate, frustration, people just not wanting it. And I don't know, I've just always reacted different to news. And I always want to give a movie a chance because I don't want to see something fail and I want to have a good time. And I am one of those people who don't mind reboots and remakes. Like I'm always asking for one for Back to the Future. And so
me too. So we're the two guys.
Yeah, we're the two guys. The only ones on Earth apparently. And it was kind of refreshing when I made my video talking about it. And I was the only one that had a positive look into it of like, this could be cool. It's not going to replace the old one. The old one's still going on. He's going to get a TV show. This could be a nice little side piece. And for some reason, people found that in a world where there's so many YouTube channels that earn their bread and butter from just hating on movies up and coming, calling them woke, calling actors shills or sellouts. And I'm like, how could there be a community filled with that much hate? There's got to be some positivity out there. You know those kind of channels I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Well, that's even kind of part of what is the appeal of my channel is that I just get happy and excited about movies.
Yeah.
And I'm, so many grown-ups, they just want to trash all this stuff, or, of course, the people that just want to, scream about Kathleen Kennedy and Brie Larson. And, cool if that's what you want to do. But I got into this because I love movies. And so that I want that positive energy on my channel. And that's where there's certain franchise, like the way that I cut through was on doing rankings, more of them than anyone else, and trying to make me more specific on stuff, but about all kind of big franchises. And part of what I discovered is that also I try to make all my rankings have a positive vibe to them. So there's certain franchises that I watched them, and I got to the third Leprechaun movie, and I went, not for me.
Yes.
And I was like, I couldn't have a positive spin on it, and I don't want to do a Leprechaun ranking that's me bashing the franchise, because whoever's going to click on it, they're a fan of the franchise.
Exactly.
And so it just, even the tone was something I was trying to be distinct with, the tone, the flavor of my channel, but also being the ranking guy and being the person that does more of them than anyone else.
Yeah.
And therefore, there's like do you watch The Office?
Of course.
So you get into season 2 of The Office, and like third or fourth episode where the office catches on fire, and Ryan says, I don't want to be the guy.
I don't want to have a thing here. I don't want to be the something guy.
I don't want to be known for something.
Yeah.
And then he sets the office on fire, so he becomes the fire guy.
Yeah.
On YouTube, you want to be the guy. You want to be the gal. You want to be the person. Like, you have to have that thing that you're associated with. And that's so important. Actually, let's kind of pause right there. Because what I think is what you've done really well is that you've pivoted a couple of times. And so you were the Child's Play guy. You were kind of the Ending Explained guy. But then you crushed it last year just as kind of the movie news guy. So can you elaborate on those pivots? Hey, thanks so much for tuning in for part 1 of this interview with 3C. If you want to check out part 2 of this interview where he answers that question that I asked him at the very end, tune in a day or two, or if you're watching in the future, it should be right down there. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more tips, click that subscribe button.